All right, in the previous video, we learned how to solve a system of equations by hand. And let's be honest, this sucks. Okay, that is a lot of work to have to try to find A, B, and C. Hate to break it to you, but there is a much simpler way to do this using matrices and your TI-84. So let's see how you can do this, and you can hate me later. All right, so first off, let's look at this one here. So we're going to start by creating what's called a coefficient matrix. All right, and it's exactly what it sounds. We're not going to use the variables. We are just going to use the coefficients. So everything on the left side, we're going to put it exactly as we see it. So in the top row, we'd have -2, 6, and 6. The next row, we would have -2, -4, -5. The next row, we have 3, 4, -3. All right? So then the next thing we're going to write is we're going to write down a variable matrix. And so our variable matrix would literally be the variables that we're using, x, y, and z. And it's going to be equal to your constant matrix. Which are the values 10, -9, 18. Well, for the time being, I'm going to refer to our coefficient matrix as A, our variable matrix as X, and our constant matrix as B. So let's think about this for a second. If I had A times X, can't write and talk at the same time, I guess, equaling B, and I wanted to solve that for X. Yes, you could divide both sides by A, but dividing by A is the same as multiplying by the inverse. So whatever I do to one side, I could do the same thing to the other side. So multiplying by the inverse would give us X equals the inverse of A times B. So to find the variable matrix, to find the solutions there, we are going to take the inverse of the coefficient matrix A times the constant matrix B. So this is what I want to do on my graphing calculator. Oops. So we would take the inverse of our coefficient matrix times our constant matrix and figure out what that equals. So what I just did there in orange, really when you're doing your work, that's really all you have to write down. Write down your coefficient matrix and then make sure that you identify that you're going to take and find the inverse of that. And then we're going to multiply that times the constant matrix. So let's see how we would do that now on your graphing calculator. Now there's a long way to do this, and there's a secret, hidden way to do this. You notice that we have this spot here where it says matrix. Most teachers, that's what they're going to tell you to use. However, I'm going to show you a little secret here. If we type the alpha button, and then if we go up to zoom, look at what shows up. We can create any matrix. Now let's talk about let's go back to our notes here and let's talk about something for how to identify a matrix. This first matrix is what we call a 3x3 matrix. We always talk about matrices in terms of rows by columns. Okay, rows run horizontally, columns run vertically. So that's going to be a 3x3 matrix. This matrix would be a 3x1 matrix, and same with this one, a 3x1 matrix, because there's 3 rows and only 1 column. So we need to make sure we tell our calculator what kind of matrix we're working with. And so let's, whoops. So the way we do that, after we do alpha zoom, we'll add that to our notes in a little bit. But alpha, if you want to write that down now, you can. Alpha zoom, that is your key, because you're going to forget that. If you forget that, notice how alpha zoom, it says F3. Okay, that doesn't tell you that that's how we're going to access your matrix option here. So this is kind of a hidden underground secret that not too many people know about. So I'm releasing that secret now. So alpha zoom, you can access matrix. If you notice, there's some other hidden features here. If you wanted to explore those, you can see that underneath functions there, we have absolute value. So it's a quick way to access absolute value and some other features that maybe would come in handy. If we're working with fractions, alpha and then F1 would access those. But we want to do alpha zoom to be able to access the matrix options. All right, so we're going to create a 3x3 matrix. So again, rows by columns. So I'm going to go up here and hit enter under 3, arrow over, hit enter again. So now we can create a 3x3 matrix. Now you have to go down, select OK, and hit enter one more time. Now it's always easiest if you go across. If you try to go down, it makes it a little bit trickier when you go to do negatives and things. So just enter in across and just keep hitting the right arrow after you enter in each digit. So we do -2, then go to the right. 6, 6, go to the right again, and it automatically goes down to the bottom left, or the next row in the left spot. So then we'd type in -2, go to the right, -4, to the right, -5, to the right. All right, bottom row, +3, +4, -3. By the way, make sure you're using the negative button, not the minus button. Otherwise, it's going to screw up your calculator. All right, hit the arrow to the right one more time. Don't hit enter. Hit arrow to the right one more time. And now, notice how underneath matrix, we have an X to the negative first button. So that is your inverse. Just type that in. Now you can do times. Your calculator will know what to do if you don't do times. But now we're going to enter in another matrix. So we have to do alpha zoom. And now this is a 3x1 matrix. So we have to arrow up and over and select, because 3 is already selected for the rows. So we're going to change the columns to be one column. We have to arrow down, hit enter. Okay, so now we got to type in what our matrix is. So our matrix is 10 in our top row. And then if you go to the right, it goes down to the next row is -9. Go to the right, and 18. Go to the right one more time so we get our cursor outside of there. So everything, double check, make sure everything is correct. So compare your matrices to the matrices that you have written down and hit enter. And this is the beauty of using your graphing calculator. So these are our values for X, Y, and Z. So again, our matrix gave you 1, -3, -1 is your answer. So what we're going to say is we're going to say X equals 1, Y equals -3, Z equals -1. Make sure you identify the variables. Don't just write it down as a matrix. Write it down like this so it's clear for what your answers are. All right, once you guys try one of these on your own, so I want you guys to try this one. So go ahead, pause the video, do all the work on your calculator, and then hit play when you're ready to check to see if you did it correctly. All right, let's see how you did here. So the answer you should have gotten is X equals -4, Y equals 0, Z equals 1. If you didn't get that, make sure that you have the coefficient matrix and your constant matrix written correctly. Make sure that you took the inverse of that first one. And I'm going to show you actually something that you can do on your calculators to even make this easier so you don't have to do alpha zoom every single time. And by the way, like I said, if you didn't already do this in your notes, might want to add that so in that way you remember that's how you access the matrix option. All right, so I'm going to show you something else that's really cool on your calculator. So if you want to always just have this set up already ready to go, if you just do the up arrow 2 times, you can select something that you've already typed in, hit enter, it pastes it down below. And then if you do second left arrow, it's going to move that cursor all the way to the beginning. So now if you go to the right, now you can just type in, now you just got to be careful because if you type in 5, it types over the negative, so you just have to delete the 2 now. But it's just so it already has a format already set up for you, so you don't have to do alpha zoom each time and set up the matrix. The matrices will already be set up for you. And so you can just go back in and edit it and change it. So that's something to make your life a little bit easier. It's up to you if you want to do that. All right, let's look at a story problem. So you can see how, because in the real world, we're not going to be solving equations like this. We're going to be facing situations where we have data in a table. So here we have an investor owns 3 stocks, stocks A, B, and C. The closing prices of the stocks are 3 consecutive trading days are given in the table. All right, so we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. These are the closing prices on the stocks in each day. Despite the volatility in the stock prices, the total value of the investor stocks remained unchanged at $74,000 at the end of each of these 3 days. How many shares of each stock does the investor own? All right, so here's what they're telling us. They're telling us that the total for each day is $74,000. Now you got to be careful, because I'm going to give you a hint. In your assignment, the question in your assignment, the total that they give you is going to be something that would go on the bottom. So you want to make sure that your table is, because it's not always set up where your table is in the proper order. So the question is saying, how many shares of each stock does the investor own? So we're trying to solve for stock A, stock B, and stock C, which would be my X, Y, and Z if we were to keep those variables, if we wanted to use different variables other than A, B, and C. So in other words, this sets up nicely where I don't need to really rewrite this as a system of equations because it's already set up properly for me. So we have one equation represents Monday, one equation represents Tuesday, another equation represents Wednesday. But I'm going to give you a hint. In your homework assignment, there's a problem where you're going to have to rewrite the equations because it's actually set up, the table is not set up properly. You'll understand what I mean when you see that in your homework. So for this one, we can just, you don't necessarily have to write this down if you don't want to, but we would have our coefficient matrix would be 10, 25, and 29, 12, 20, 32, 16, 15, and 32. So that would be our first matrix. Take the inverse of that and multiply that by our constant matrix. Constant matrix is 74,000. Make sure you have enough zeros in there. You should have 3 zeros for 74,000. And I'll just tell you, when you do that, you get stock A would be 1,500 shares, so 1,500 shares. Stock B, he has 1,200 shares. And stock C, he has 1,000 shares. So you would just do that on your calculator, and those are the values you would get. All right, so that's how you can apply what we just did to a story problem. So good luck now as you work on your assignment.